all. So thanks everyone for attending tonight. Welcome to the Finca Chocolat Belize. It's an offshore offering. We'll get kind of right into the meat of it. My name's David Kafka. I am the manager of Caribbean Capital Group, and I've been in Belize since 2004 when I came and discovered it, and living here going on 15 years in February, since February of 2010. Moved here with my family and Serena, and started out as a Remax broker, and then quickly became the top agent in the Caribbean and Central America in the top 100. And then through networking, was introduced to Robert Kiyosaki, the Real Estate Guys radio show, and then the investment bug came in. And of course, before I put anybody's money into it, I put my money into it and invested in a bunch of things, and went to school basically for 5 years or so. And so here we are, offering some wonderful opportunities here in Belize. And with us tonight is David Santilli. David, good evening to you, sir.
Evening, Dave. Thanks for having me, and everyone, thank you for joining us today. My background, I'm from the US originally, did a little bit of time in Japan, did an MBA, started a consulting firm in Washington, DC for management consulting, kind of burnt out of that and moved to Belize in 2006. I had been coming to Belize since the 90s as a tourist. I moved full-time in 2006. Was a little bit too young to retire, so I got involved in tourism in 2009. And then in 2015, got involved in agriculture with Finca Chocolat.
Very good. We also, part of our team is Mike Pine. It was Pine and Associates, but now they just, as of last week, rebranded to Revo Tax. So they specialize in helping syndicators and investors do taxes. And then, of course, we have Serena, helps me run the back end and all the marketing side of my companies. So just a general disclaimer that my lawyer wants to talk about is, this is just a business plan. It contains privileged and confidential information, and unauthorized use of this information is strictly prohibited. It's not intended to send to anybody. And we're not offering anything right now. This is just information. And then if you are interested, we'll talk to you about how you can come join the Finca Chocolat family. So we are going to talk about future projections and things like that. But we're not going to use anything as may, or we'll use things as may, but we won't say things as it will happen or things like that. So just wanted to get that out from the beginning to make my syndication lawyer happy. So this is a opportunity for you all to come and join the Finca Chocolat family. We're projecting returns at 12 to 14%. Annualized. It is a SEC registered 506C. So what that means is it's for accredited investors only. And then we also have worldwide participation from the Reg S section for people that live outside the US. But this is pretty much North American, Canadian, US investors for this webinar. So it is for accredited investors only. Also, while we're going through this presentation, all the pictures are from the farm itself, except for one, and we'll show you which one that is. But just take a look at all the beauty of what this 515-acre cacao farm is. So what is a 506C? It means I have to do third-party verification. I can't take your word for it that you are accredited. So what I have is I have a third-party verification company that will verify this. Or if you have a CPA or a lawyer that will sign a letter that you're verified, then we're covered. What is a accredited investor? Well, at the moment, what it means is that you have a net worth of over $1 million US, excluding your primary residence. And that's individually or with a spouse or partner. Or you can come in with income over 200,000 for the last 2 years with a reasonable expectation of doing the same for 2024, or 300,000 with a partner or spouse. So again, if there's any questions on that, we're happy to answer that at the end of the webinar. So we're definitely talking about Belize. We say Belize is international investing on training wheels because everything's in English. Contracts are in English. English is the official language. It's the fastest growing Caribbean market in tourism and one of the top tourist destinations in the world. However, tourism only represents about 30% of the GDP. The second largest contributor is agriculture. So the fourth quarter in 2023, Belize saw 148 million Belize dollars, or 74.3 US dollars in the fourth quarter, with over 1.9 million acres of land that can be farmed for investing in agribusinesses. One of the reasons why Belize is so popular is that it's easily accessible from the US, either by air, by land, or by cargo ships, sea, cruise ships, things like that. And it has strong relations, international relationships with many different countries over around us. It's a stable government. It's very peaceful. It is a democratic government with democratic elections. It's a two-party system, just like the US. Just the US is kind of more far apart than it is here. Here, they're kind of, during the short time of campaigning, they're fighting at each other, and then they go back to being friends, if you will. So it's not really, a big spread like in different areas. It is more like Canada, though, because it is a country that is part of the British Commonwealth. So we don't have a president, we have a prime minister. So it's definitely more on the, if you're Canadian and you're joining us, it's more like what you all are used to. So what makes Belize attractive for foreign investors is we have a large skilled labor force. Our currency is pegged to the US dollar. It's a high demand and high appreciation rates for real estate. It's pretty much affordable. It's not cheap, but it is affordable compared to other Caribbean nations around us. And the property laws apply to Belizeans and foreigners equally. So that's kind of what distinguishes us from a lot of other countries. Like I have a house in Mexico, and I have to own that through a fideicomiso because it's so close to the water. So it's not the same as like Belize. Also, there's no capital gains tax in Belize, and there's no estate tax. And our income tax is for farm revenue is only 3%. So we have some of the strongest banking and privacy laws in the world. And there's not a lot of sharing information with the US. Why do the wealthiest 1% invest in agriculture? Well, it's because, God's not making any more land. Bill Gates in 2020 made headlines for becoming one of the largest private farmland owner in the United States. And I think this is old. I couldn't find an updated amount, but we were just talking about him the other day in one of my groups. And he owns more than 275,000 acres of farmland in 18 states. So he has accumulated a lot of that. So it's no surprise that an estimated of 30% of all US farmland is owned by landlords who don't farm it themselves, but they kind of buy the land and then they lease it to the actual farmers. Agriculture is the world's largest industry. The global agricultural market grew from $12.2 billion in 2022 to $13.3 billion in 2023. That's a compound annual growth rate of 9.4%. And the science and art of farming requires a skilled workforce with the asset of owning the real estate, equipment, sunlight, things like that. It can be grouped together with other assets, in your portfolio. So it is kind of a hedge, you're diversifying as well. You're owning an asset that can be grouped with your other assets, if you will. So the asset, it always appreciates. So land is considered to be the asset with the longest life. It can't be depreciated, and you cannot account for its cost by gradually reducing its value, whereas everything else can be depreciated. The useful span of life is considered to be eternal. Acquiring stakes in agriculture is a long-term play. You can help maintain and grow wealth through land value appreciation. Again, we talked about diversifying your portfolio with a long-term investment. So if you have some short-term investments, something that's, like a stock bond or a treasury or some sort, you can combine that with this to hedge against economic instability. Excuse me. And it doesn't matter who is in office or what elections or whatever, what virus is out there, the land is there. So your investment is backstopped by the value of this land. It's not a speculative investment. So we're proud to present this unique offering that gives you an attractive annual cash flow, depreciation in all the assets that is held in the company, plus the long-term appreciation of the land and the diversification of all the crops that we are growing. And Dave will kind of get into that. And the projections for growth is in the short and long term. So we have things that are producing now, and we have things that will be ready in the future. Excuse me. So if you are interested in kind of dipping your toe in offshore portfolio diversification, this may be an avenue for you. I'm using it to pass down generational wealth to my kids. We underwrite it conservatively to mitigate the risk. We did just update our numbers because we were just blowing them out of the water, but we still rewrote it, the returns, very conservatively. And we also help to reforest the earth one tree at a time. So there's a social aspect that David will talk about, because we're giving jobs to an area that has a lot of unemployment. And of course, real estate is an inflation hedge in rocky times. And it helps you get money outside of your local banking market, if you will. So like if you're in the US, it helps you just to move some money outside the US. So there's all kind of diversification plays in this investment. So Dave, you want to take this on?
Sure. Yeah, I just want to touch on something that Dave said before I jump into this a little bit. This really is a tripartite return. We're looking at financial returns, but it's not the only thing we're doing. If that was my sole focus, I would have stayed in DC and continued being a Beltway bandit. But we're also looking at the social and environmental return in this investment. So trust me, I have an MBA with concentration in finance. I do not get into things to lose money, and I want to make money, but we're trying to do more than just return a decent number to people. So Finca Chocolat is a 15-acre cacao farm. It's in the southern part of the country in Toledo. It's one of the two largest cacao farms in Belize, and we'll be overtaking the first one pretty soon here. The land was cleared for cattle ranching in the early 1990s, but the gentleman who had purchased it in that point in time moved back to the States in the early 2000s, and everything just kind of went into decline. So in 2015, I pulled a few group of people, about 5 people together. We bought the property and started what we branded as Finca Chocolat. Initially, we were Dave, if you want to hit the next slide. Initially, we were focused on cacao, but we very quickly realized that, one, the land needed a more symbiotic relationship with the items that we were planting, and the return was simply a lot better moving to an agroforestry system. This is the one slide Dave talked about where this picture is obviously not of the farm. This was something just pulled out of a textbook, but it's a little hard to show 515 acres and how agroforestry works. But the idea behind agroforestry is you have 3 different levels, and you have a canopy at the top level, which we're doing with hardwoods. Then you have the mid-story, which for us is cacao, and then the understory, which we'll talk about this more, but it's primarily turmeric, lemongrass, vanilla, and cardamom. There are major advantages to doing this from an agricultural standpoint, but it also makes sure that we maximize the value per acre of the farm. Okay. The crops that we have on the farm right now, we have a lot of things on the farm. The top is really what's of interest to us for the most part. The commercially viable crops are 7 acres of cashews that we had on the farm when we purchased it. Lemongrass is something that we've started in the last 2 years and is going really well for us. Vanilla, turmeric, and cardamom are 2 of the top 3 price spices in the world, with saffron being the number 1, but saffron doesn't grow well in our location. So we've got number 2 and 3. Turmeric there's a local market for it, and it can be dried and processed. Banana and plantain, and then the canopy, which we're focusing on fairly quick growing hardwood trees, such as rosewood, barbaholote, and mahogany is not, and psalmwood. And then mahogany, which we kind of throw in, it's the national tree of Belize. We put a few here and there for our grandkids to possibly benefit from down the road. But unfortunately, we'll all be dead. Dave and I will be dead. You guys might not be. Other crops include soursop, breadfruit, coconut, achiote, pigeon pea, and bamboo. And almost all of these we use in some way to either fix nitrogen in the soil, or we use it during the fermentation process. We use the biochar we use the bamboo for biochar production. So it all kind of continues in that circular process to make sure that we're using the farm as efficiently as possible from all standpoints. Okay. I got a little bit of my head of myself here, but as I just talked about, we are growing for biodiversity. Each of the crops kind of link back in a circular model. I talked about this a little bit. The multi-strato agroforestry system ensures we maximize value per acre. We compost the lemongrass after distillation. Anything that we cut down, if we have to prune or trim the trees, we turn into biochar. Biochar we use as a soil amendment to improve soil health. And it sequesters quite a bit of carbon. So beyond planting the trees themselves, which sequester carbon, and which is of major interest to a lot of people right now, and helps us with our sales and marketing, we produce biochar. We're one of the few entities in Belize that produces biochar. We were actually nominated for the Earthshot Prize out of the UK for it's $1 million prize for 23 and 24. We will not be receiving it because we can't scale this process to the level that they want to, but it's nice to be recognized and asked to participate. Mm-hmm. I wish we were getting it. We're getting $1 million, £1 million. It'd be great, Dave. Okay, so I do want to kind of talk about this a little bit. I'm sure a lot of you have seen the cacao market going crazy over the last year. If you're here on this webinar, you probably did a little bit of research and paid attention to the pricing in cacao. The chart on the right I just took today. It's a futures chart of cacao pricing. But this is a 1-year graph, right? And you'll see that, a year ago, cacao was selling for less than $4,000 a ton. It was actually around $2,800 a ton most of 2023 until right at the end of the year. When it started increasing, it hit 12,000 at one point, and everyone was going crazy about it. It's around 8,000 now. It's nice, it's great, it's allowed us to increase our pricing, but we are in the fine flavor cacao market. So even when cacao was selling at $2,800 a ton, we were selling our cacao for 6,000 plus a ton. The fine flavor cacao makes up about 15% of the market and is in high demand. our demand has almost always has, I shouldn't say almost, it has always exceeded our production. There were supply shortfalls in the overall market in 23 and 24, mostly because Ivory Coast and Ghana, who produce more than 50% of the cacao worldwide, have seen problems with disease, illegal mining, aging trees and aging farmers. So I don't see this changing anytime in the next 5 years. We're going to go into the timeline for a cacao tree, but basically it takes 5 years for a tree to produce. So even if people planted this year, there's a 5-year moat. And I don't see this pricing. It might come down to 6,000 for commodity cacao, possibly even a little bit less, but we're always going to be selling above that number. So even when cacao was at $2,800 a ton, we were selling for 6,000 plus. It's nice. We're in a great position to capitalize on this market, but we don't need it. We will succeed either way. Next slide, Dave. Thanks. Dave will talk a little bit more about this later, but chocolate consumption has increased exponentially over the last couple of decades. A lot of our work has already been done. I talked about the fact that our demand exceeds our supply. So we right now have at the end of this year, right now we have 100,000 trees in cacao cultivation. At the end of this year, we'll have 115,000 trees in cultivation. You're going to see a map later that shows you which areas of the farm are mature and which areas are coming online in different times. But if we did nothing else but wait for these trees to mature, we would be highly profitable at today's rates. If it goes back down to the $2,800 a ton, we will still do well. Okay. Each year we're adding 15,000 cacao trees until we exhaust the farm, which will be at the rate we're planting around 2028. At this point, 4 to 5 more years, we'll have the whole farm planted out for cacao. I talked about this a little bit. Even when the rate for cacao was less than $3,000 a ton, we were selling at 6,000. This last year, we sold all of our cacao at 8,500 plus a ton. And as I said, I was at a conference in Brazil back in June. The demand for fine flavored cacao is incredible right now. I could be shipping 5-6 containers a month if we had it to do so. A little bit about how the farm is set up and laid out. We plant our cacao on a 10-foot by 12-foot grid that allows us to kind of get between the rows, but the canopy grows together over time, and we'll talk about that a little more too. We have 100,000 trees in cultivation at the moment. We'll have 115,000 at the end of this year. Trees produce an average of about 1.5 pounds of dry cacao per year. Of course, that fluctuates a little bit. You know, it can be a little higher, it can be a little lower. A lot of it depends on the weather patterns in any particular year. We're growing Trinitario on the farm. All of our cacao, I shouldn't say all of it, a little bit of it is Criollo, but 98% of our cacao is Trinitario, which is a fine flavor cacao. There's 3 main types. Forastero is what's grown in Western Africa for the most part. We're growing Trinitario, which is grown a lot in Latin America, and Criollo is kind of the original variety. Commercial lifespan for cacao trees is about 30 years. And as Dave had mentioned earlier, we are producing cacao now. We're selling it. It gives us a steady cash flow so that we can support the farm on a yearly basis while we wait for the hardwoods to mature. The harvest in Belize runs from December to June. And this last point is really important. All post-harvest processing is done on site at Finca Chocolat. So we do all the fermentation, we do all the drying, and we do all the packaging. So we control the tree from the time we germinate in the nursery until we're sending cacao in a container to one of our customers. Very few cacao farms can say that. Most cacao farms sell their cacao wet to other farms, and they are dependent on the other farms, larger farms, to then process the cacao. You can grow a fantastically good genetic variety of cacao and really mess it up very easily during this fermenting and drying process. Okay. I do want to just go over this so you understand the timeline and why we're raising money, to be honest with you. As I said, if we did nothing else, when the trees come online, we'll be great. But I'm kind of impatient. I probably shouldn't have gotten into agriculture. I was used to the consulting world where I could hire a bunch of smart guys and just fix stuff and get it done. Sometimes money can help with that, and not always in agriculture. You know, if we had $3 million today, it wouldn't matter, but 500 or a million will matter for us. So cacao, in the first year, we started an annual nursery every February by March at the latest. Trees are grown in the nursery and by seed until August, more or less, when we start planting. we want the trees to get in and set their roots before the dry season starts in January and February of the following year. The second year, trees are in the field, there's no production at all. We do some structural pruning at the end of year 2, but what we're really doing is we're controlling weeds around the trees, okay? Year 3, kind of the same thing. There's no significant production. You might get a few pods on some of the early trees, but again, it's a lot of maintenance and pruning. In year 4, the trees begin to produce and start to canopy. And what I mean by canopy is they grow together so that they're blocking out the sunlight for and it reduces the maintenance because there are less weeds since there's less sunlight. In year 5, the trees complete the canopy, which decreases our weed control and costs substantially. We spend a lot of money on weeds, and we'll get into that and why we're doing lemongrass later. We maintain the trees with pruning annually, and at 5 years, they're pretty much fully mature. Year 6 to 30, the trees are producing at full capacity. Cacao trees will live 100+ years, but in general, their commercial life cycle is somewhere between 30 and 33 years. Okay, thanks. The second product that we have on line right now with Finca that's income generating is lemongrass. The lemongrass market is not as big as cacao, but it's growing at a similar rate of about 9.93% a year. Like cacao, it's a superfood. It's an antioxidant, anti-inflammatory. It has health benefits. But more importantly for us, it can be distilled into essential oil. So we can take a very voluminous product and distill it down into a very small bottle that we can store and ship very easily. The lemongrass oil can be used in soaps, cosmetics, and insecticides. And why did we choose this? It's a non-perishable product. We can add value very easily with processing, and it's suitable to our environment. So what we're doing is everywhere we have weeds and we're spending money on weed control, we're putting in lemongrass so we can use that acreage more efficiently. We tested this first on site in 2023. It went really well, and we've expanded substantially in the last year. Right now, we're selling fresh lemongrass to Nolito, and that's a picture that you see on the right here. They make a product called Truly Turmeric. I'm sorry, their actual company is called Nolito, but they go by Truly Turmeric because they make a turmeric product. They're also one of the purchasers of our turmeric. And they're making this fever grass iced tea. In Belize, lemongrass is called fever grass. So we have a local market right now. We are completing our distillation facility right now, and you'll see some pictures of that. And we'll be actually producing the oil by the end of 2024.
And this is a picture of it back here too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, lemongrass is behind that, and you'll see some more of that.
So the opportunity is we have 600 shares. We've sold some already, and then we're not going to sell all 600. We'll keep some for ourselves as well. And the investment amount is a pretty decent low barrier to entry at $20,000 a share. And we give discounts if you're buying 10 or more shares. And the projected returns on that is 12 to 14%. And then once you invest, there's no hidden cost or additional fees outside of a nominal planting fee. When we harvest everything, cut it down, and then we'll replant everything based on what that takes at that time. And then there'll be no income for 5 years again. And then we'll incrementally do that every year. Since we're planting the farm every year, a different section, we will go ahead and harvest that way as well.
Yeah, let me just address that real quick, Dave.
Yep.
Just to clarify, we will never cut the whole farm down at once.
Mm-hmm.
We'll do it section by section. So we might do 10%, and every year, do 10%. So 90% will be returning revenue while the trees that we planted early on are being replaced.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So the managers manage the farm, pay the bills, harvest the crop, and then sells the cacao, the lemongrass, the turmeric, and all that, the hardwood trees at that time. And then the investors receive 80% of that after the expenses, and the manager does all the work, and then they get 20%. So we just have some, reviews from people that bought our product. Dave, you want to just kind of go over those three?
Sure. I think more, you guys can read what's here on the page, but I think more importantly than this, the best review that we've gotten recently was when I was down in Brazil. I gave some samples to a Honduran chocolate maker who's won international awards, and he's asking now for us to help enter, well, to make a bar with him next year, that he'll want to enter in the international awards again. But everyone who's tasted our cacao, chefs, chocolatiers, bean to bar makers, has praised it extremely highly. I really can't take the credit for that. Our team is great. We've got people who have been involved in processing. As I said, the fermentation, the drying is really the key to ensuring that a good genetic tree turns into an excellent product, as you can ruin it at that point if you're not careful.
Yeah, I agree. And you're not buying a specific area of the farm. You're buying into the whole farm and the whole process. So you're adding that to your portfolio. So some of the reasons why we feel this is a strong market is because, like we went over already, the global cacao market is projected to grow at a rate of 3.94%. And I think it's even low because of what we're seeing with the futures market. The market is estimated to reap revenue worth over $187 billion by 2027. There is a global rise in chocolate consumption because it is a superfood, and the demand for cacao is very high. The social media and advertising strategies have changed people's mindset about chocolate. So I know when I make bars from our beans, but I have a chocolatier make the actual bar. Everybody I give it to tells me how great it is. And like David said, it's a testament to the team. Recently, I just met Ice-T. He had some. Snyder, who was on Adam Sandler's movies, he loved it and asked for more. So we have a lot of people we're handing it out to. The cacao market growth is due to the rising demand of the health benefits like we talked about. And because of the pandemic, a lot of consumers are more health conscious. Chocolate has a high cacao content, has less sugar and additives, and reduces high blood pressure, lowers the risk of heart attack, stroke, improves mood, symptoms of depression, things like that. The world is going to be at 11.2 billion people by 2050. So we're trying to position ourselves to be a part of that growing market in the need of timber and cacao, lemongrass, and things like that. The lumber is a tropical hardwood that is decreasing because of harvesting and not sustainable harvesting. They're just cutting it down like crazy, and they're not replanting. So we are sustainable in the amount and the fact that whatever we remove, we are replanting again. And of course, the social aspect is every tree that we plant helps reduce the carbon footprint. And like what David mentioned, is everything we're doing and growing has a high margin and non-perishable. So it's not like we're picking bananas when they're not ready and then filling them with gas and shipping them to places to consume them. So here are some pictures of the farm. Dave, do you want to go over this, or you want me to go over this?
Sure, I'll go over it. So this top left picture where you see the yellow bags, this is a shipment we recently put together and sent to the US. These are 50 kilogram bags of cacao. The nice thing about this shipment is it's already been about 1/3 spoken for, and it's not even landed in the US yet. Below it is a cacao tree in the nursery. And there's some other trees in here. You'll see more mature ones, but these are trees in the nursery. As I said, we grow at least 15,000. Actually, we grow about 17,000 every year in the nursery. So we have a few more to work with some of our partner farms and help them expand their acreage as well. To the right of that is a cacao pod that's been opened. If you've never been on a farm, you've never seen a cacao pod, it might be a little interesting to you, but yeah, chocolate actually comes from a seed, which is the fruit of the cacao pod. Um, it's great. It's really flavorful. It's very sweet. It's something you should come to the farm and visit us and try a little bit. To the right here in the center, this is a 3-year-old psalmwood tree. So these trees have a very rapid growth rate. The guys in the picture are of Maya descent, so most of them are a little short, but they're full-grown men. So you can get a bit of an idea for it. But in 3 years, those trees shoot to about 25 plus feet generally. The one to the right is a 6-month-old cacao tree psalmwood tree that had just been planted. Did I say psalmwood or the other one, Dave?
Yes.
It's great. So those are both psalmwood trees. One is 6 months and one is 3 years. So you can see the growth from when they first go in the ground to about 2.5 years after they've been in the ground, a total of about 3 years old. On top of that, on the left-hand side, you'll see vanilla that's in the nursery. What we do is we take the vines, we put them in the nursery, we care for them, we let them get to about 6 feet long, and then we clip a 3-foot section and put it on a tree. We're actually putting these all on the cashew trees, the 7 acres of cashew, because it's close to the nursery. It's an easy place to monitor. Cashew trees have low hanging limbs, and vanilla needs to be kind of bent every 6 feet to make it produce. So this is a vine that's growing up a cashew tree that you'll see. Vanilla takes about 18 to 24 months until they start producing at a commercially viable level. We really just started this process in 2023 on a little test phase. We've expanded in 2024, and pending funding, we will aggressively move into it when we have the funds to do so. But it grows extremely well at Finca. We've got the competency to grow it and the background in it, and the space to do it in. This bottom picture here is lemongrass. This is one of the guys actually splitting lemongrass. We divide it, we grow it. We're still expanding our lemongrass in cultivation. So right now we're harvesting for Nolito for them to make their truly turmeric iced tea, selling to them. We will then also be harvesting for ourselves soon, and we are expanding the acreage in lemongrass dramatically. We did that this year. We'll do it again probably for the next 3 years until we have somewhere around 60 or so acres of lemongrass, which is what our current distillation capacity can handle. And then we'll know by that point in time whether we want to invest more in this market or not.
And then David said a few times, didn't know if y'all caught it, that they always do a test run before they do things. So the vanilla, they did a test run before they, really got bigger into it. Same thing with the lemongrass. They did a test run for a year. So they always do a crawl, walk, run type scenario, which is great.
Right. We don't throw money away until we don't throw money into something until we know it's going to work, basically.
Exactly.
Do you want to talk about this, Dave, or do you want me to?
Yeah, go ahead if you want.
Okay, great. So use of funds, as David said a couple of times, our anticipated ROI over the initial period of investment is, like I said, I have a degree in finance. It's actually 13.19% because I hate generalities, but we're saying 12 to 14% because you never know, right? With the pricing where cacao is now, it's probable that we will exceed that, but I feel extremely confident that we're going to return this 12 to 14% number. Returns are expected to continue into perpetuity, right? As we talked about with the replanting, this is something that Dave and I both got into somewhat for ourselves, but really to create generational wealth for our families. And I think everyone who's gotten into it has at least partially had that in the back of their mind, regardless of their age. Vanilla cacao and cacao derivatives, and we're going to talk about that a little bit, are not included in these financial projections. Okay, so this projection is just based on lemongrass and cacao at this point in time. Okay, and I really do want to make this point that this is not just a financially motivated deal. The reason I got into this, to be honest with you, I put an asterisk by job creation. It's really hard to live in Belize and see the lack of opportunity for so many people and not try to do something. When I first moved to Belize, I used to give people money. Then I tried to help people start little businesses, but that can be difficult without a good education and training. So Finca Chocolat for me is a way to give back both environmentally and socially while making some money at the same time. We're sequestering a lot of carbon. We're reforesting an area that had been deforested in the past for ranching. And this is also really important. We're a model for successful regenerative agricultural practices. And what I mean by that is we're working in an area that has a slash and burn history where they'll just go in, they'll chop down trees, they'll burn everything, they'll plant it. And then in 2 to 3 years, they depleted all of the soil microbes. So they have to leave it fallow for 4 or 5 years until things kind of start to grow back, and then they'll repeat the cycle. But what it really does is it just keeps eating away at the rainforest in the area. So when we started this, I think a lot of our neighbors thought we were a little bit crazy to do it like this, but people are starting to pay attention. You know, the fact that we were nominated for the Earthshot Prize, the fact that we won some other grants, has made some of our neighbors start to say, hey, maybe there's a methodology beyond what we've been doing for millennia that could actually benefit the environment as well as ourselves financially. Okay. What we're seeking equity for, as I said, we're gonna succeed with the cacao if we don't plant another tree, especially with pricing the way it is today. But what we're looking to do is we're looking to build a HACCP certified processing and storage facility so that we can increase our products that we're able to export to the US for food manufacturers. We're looking to increase our drying capacity. We're looking to further expand our partner network. We're looking to purchase equipment that will go into the processing facility. It would be nice to have a fuel depot on site rather than bringing fuel back and forth. So a small fuel depot is something that we're looking at. We've got the 7 acres of cashew that we're planting vanilla into, but I'd like to expand beyond that. I'd like to get our vanilla up to 20, 25, 30 acres worth of vanilla over the next couple of years. So that'll take some preparation and some money to do that. And then importing actual vines at scale. You know, what we're doing now is perfectly fine. We can triple our vanilla vines every year, but it would be nice if we really moved into vanilla truly to just bring in a couple thousand vines at one time from Mexico of high grade vanilla and not have to wait a couple years to double it every time. Upgrading our water and electrical. If we put in a processing facility, I would love to see us run that off solar. The insulation in Belize is great. The solar prices have come down enough that it makes sense economically. And in a country where the grid is not always 100%, it's nice to know that no matter what, we'll be able to process regardless of what government of Belize is doing with buying power from neighbors, right? And then of course, hiring and training teams for processing the vanilla and more rapidly expanding the areas that we can plant. As I said, I'm not a hugely patient person, but agriculture forces you to be, but more money to an extent will allow us to go more quickly than we can, right? And, you know, as Dave said, we're not going to sell all 600 of these units, but we might sell a little more than we actually need for this farm and buy another couple hundred acres because there are a lot of economies of scale when it comes to this. We've got all of especially if we have the processing, the nursery, the knowledge in-house. We can capitalize on that by taking on more acreage once we're getting near to finishing out the 515 acres we have right now. And I want to just make this one point again. We have no outstanding debt. Finca has never taken a loan. We have customers in 3 continents right now: North America, Central America, and Asia. We also have actually customers in Europe, one customer in Europe, so I don't really count that because it's just a small one. We're cash positive right now. And once the existing trees that have been planted are mature, around 2026, we will be profitable. So we're closing in on that number. When Dave and I started this, it was 2 more years. It seemed like a long way away, but we're closing in on 26 pretty quick now.
Yeah. And then this is the survey map of the farm. And it's located in the southern part of the Toledo district on the Barranco Road.
Okay. So what have we done to date with the money that we've gotten so far? We built a new fermentation facility, which increased our capacity by 600%. So our old facility, I probably should have put a picture here beside it. We had the ability to ferment and dry. No, just stay where you are, Dave, please.
We're just going to show this one right here. This is what it is right here.
So our old facility was perfectly fine up until just about now, but our internal production is increasing to the point that we need a new facility. We're also buying from a lot more farmers, which is our third point here. We're expanding our partner network from 20 farmers this year to 100 plus farmers for 2024. I should say last year. The cacao season runs December to January. So I'm talking about the season, not always the calendar year when I draw out these dates. And we're building a new drying facility, which is the picture on the right here. That's not completed yet. We're waiting for the R panels to come in this week, but that will be done before the new season ramps up. That has 150% capacity above what we've had historically. The truth is we could use more drying, but we can get by for this year with what we've got. We already purchased the distillation equipment for the lemongrass, and we're building the distillation facility right now, which is the bottom two pictures. You see an exterior and interior picture. We're waiting on the two open spaces. We're waiting for the garage doors to come in, and they'll be finalizing that by the end of October. We also are putting in an additional 20 tons worth of storage for cacao because we anticipate needing the storage this year. We purchased new farm equipment, and I think this was not something we did with money, but from a sales and marketing standpoint, we established a direct relationship with one of the major distributors of fine quality cacao in the US, which is Meridian Cacao. We have an offtake agreement with them at $82.50 a ton. So basically they will buy as much cacao as we can produce for them at $8,250 US a ton, which is above the rate that we did the projections at. Not that we have to sell to them, but it's always nice to know that as much as we can produce, they'll take. Okay. We updated the website recently that if you go back one slide real quick, Dave, there's a lot more details and pictures on all of this on the website under field notes, if you are interested. Okay, sorry, Dave.
Marina will put it in the chat as well, so you can just click on it.
Yeah. What are we doing next, right? We talked about we want to expand into vanilla. Okay, some of the reasons are it can be dried and stored, so spoilage is not an issue, right? As all of our products, we're not growing tomatoes, we're not growing peppers, we're not growing cucumbers because they spoil. You have to sell it at the spot rate when it's ready. For us, we can wait. We can afford to wait, and we've done that with cacao. When pricing was a little low, we just held it for a few months because what happens is everyone produces cacao, they sell it in the summer. Stocks start running low by November, December. So if you can wait between July and December, you'll almost always get a higher rate of return on your cacao. Again, vanilla has not been added to the financial projections here. Excuse me. And this is a big one. Processing is something we really want to move into. I talked about adding a plant that we can have certified for food grade items to move to the US or export to the US. I'd like to start producing cacao derivatives. And what I mean by that is cocoa butter, cocoa powder, nibs, and couverture, and cocoa mass. We're making chocolate right now. We make a little bit for samples, like David alluded to, that we give out samples to people sometimes. But the truth is, making chocolate at scale for export in the tropics is extremely difficult. So I would like to position Finca Chocolat as kind of the hardware store for chocolate makers, rather than become a retail chocolatier. Go ahead, Dave. Long term, and I want to try to finish this up so we have time for questions, but long term, we're looking at the hardwood trees. We have right now 12,850 psalmwood that we planted over the last 4 years that are in the ground. We'll be adding about 5 to 7,000 hardwood trees a year for the next couple of years. By 2026, we will have planted out the farm with all the hardwood that we need on a 30 by 30 foot grid. When it comes time to replant the cacao, we harvest the hardwoods in sections of the farm without damaging the cacao that's not yet ready. And we talked about that, how we're going to do it in sections. So, the first 5 years of a cacao farm, to be honest with you, kind of sucks financially. Thankfully, we're in year 8, so we're past that point. And we never have to get back to it where we have no part of the farm that's producing. There will always be parts of the farm going forward that produce. Samwood is the tree that we're primarily focused on, but we do also have Barba Jolote, which is a gorgeous wood, and rosewood, which is one of the more expensive woods in the world. Anything to add there, Dave? Okay. Here's where I got to my 12,000 number. But you see where we planted, again, going back to the fact that we do a little test first. In 2021, we planted 350 psalmwood trees to make sure they would work. In 22 and 23, we planted 3,500 and tested rosewood in 22. Then we went into rosewood, Barba Jolote, and psalmwood in 2023. The rosewood and the Barba Jolote are not as easy to grow in the nursery. So we're focusing more on the psalmwood. It's a better return for the time and money invested in it. but we like the diversity of the hardwoods on the farm. So we'll always do a little bit of it. I said this, by 2026, we will have planted out all 515 acres where we need hardwoods. And these trees will align with removing the cacao as it dies out, right? Or as it decreases in production, I should say. Okay. Mahogany, we don't really have to talk about. It's there for the grandkids.
Mhm.
You want to talk about this one or me, Dave?
Yeah, you kind of, when we were
Okay.
going over this earlier, it was good how you explained it.
Okay, so the green area of the farm here is the area that is mature at this point in time. They're the first areas that we planted. It has cacao and hardwoods. The blue was an area that cacao did not do well, and because it was where the cattle had all gathered, and to be honest, it was a very compacted area. So we planted that in lemongrass, and we're going to expand that lemongrass throughout this green area, like between rows and wherever there's areas that don't work, as well for cacao. Thankfully, the hardwoods are doing great everywhere, but the green area is mature, it's producing. The blue is the lemongrass. The yellow, over to the right, and kind of you see up some above there at the top, were planted in 2021. And the years you see here are the planting years. So while the green areas are producing now, this area that was producing in 2021 will be mature in 2026. So it will start producing next year. It'll produce at full capacity the following year. The two purple triangles and the hash area behind it were planted in 2022. So in 2027, they'll be mature and producing. In 2023, we planted this area over to the right. All the area to the right that is not gridded out has existing canopy. It was not cleared for the original ranch. Okay. So it's been great that we've been able to plant cacao under those areas while we're growing hardwood trees in the brown areas. And by the time we move out of the area with the canopy, you see where the 24 is, we're doing that right now. Above it will be 25, and above that will be 26. Okay, I probably should have put those numbers in there to make it more clear. But by the time we are done with the existing canopy, we will have canopy that we've created with the hardwood trees. Okay. Any questions about that? All right, Dave.
All right, so if you are interested in just coming and taking a look at the farm, you're always welcome to come. If you're in Belize and you want a private tour, we're happy to do so. But what we've done in the past, this will be our third one, is we've done a discovery tour or discovery trip, if you will. It's 4 days, 3 nights, and we basically stay at Mahogany or at Mariposa, and then we do a little bit of rest and relaxation. You get some swimming in. We take care of the food. We get you a snorkeling trip or a hike and swim. We spend a good amount of time at the farm. We do a chocolate experience, a Mayan archaeological tour. And so it's $9.97 a person. The next one is the beginning of November. So there's still time to get in. I think we have a couple more rooms available. And it's just getting like-minded people together on a trip to Belize that is a write-off for your taxes because you're coming to check out investments. Now, I'm not a tax person, so make sure you check with your tax associate as well. So next steps, we're gonna go to questions. I just wanted to put this up there. We have a business plan and the private placement memorandum documents where you can go out and fill out, how much you want to invest. You can arrange a call to talk to me privately through Serena. And then the farm tour is the 7th through the 10th. And you can sign up for that. We have a Stripe account as well. And then, you can always reach out to Dave as well. I kind of take care of the investor side and he kind of runs the farm. This is our existing drying facility now. But it's just truly beautiful to be there at the farm and spending time. And the trip is for you all. So we can take a little route and just see a little bit of the farm. Or we can take the big loop and we'll have water there and everything. So it's just awesome to be there. I'll be there in a couple weeks to shoot some more content and things like that. But yeah, thanks for attending. So let's go to some questions. Serena, do we have questions? I'm going to stop sharing. And then we can see if there are any questions.
Steve had asked a question in the chat about how much can you sell to Meridian? Meridian has said they'll take as much as we can produce. We'll see, right? I'd like to also establish a relationship with a distributor in Europe. So we might sell them all of our production for the next year or two, but we'll probably work on Asia and Europe as well, since we already have existing clients there. We'll keep supporting our existing clients, but sell all the remainder most likely to Meridian. And we sell a decent amount of chocolate in Belize as well. I'm sorry, a decent amount of cacao in Belize as well.
We don't want a single point failure. So if Meridian
Right.
decides, hey, we got another person, we don't want to be stuck with a bunch of cacao we can't sell. Or
we can always sell it, Dave.
we'll always sell it. Yes, I shouldn't. Yeah, I didn't mean it like that, but we just don't want single point failure. So we want multiple people
Correct.
we're selling to. And yes, we do sell in country as well. Let me see. You want to talk about, there's questions up, what are some questions you could ask? I'll talk to one, and we get this a lot from investors. Dave, we're always asking, what do we need to be concerned about? Hurricanes, things like that. So let's talk about that a little bit, because, there are not every investment is, foolproof, right? There's always some risk.
Right. And there's definitely risk in this investment, as there is in every investment. We often get the question about hurricanes. Honestly, in our location, hurricanes are not a huge issue. More of an issue is fire in southern Belize. What we do to prevent that and guard against it is we ensure that there's fire breaks around the property as the dry season is coming on. We always have staff on site at Finca and security with the phone and the radio. And thankfully, most of our crew lives about 3 miles down the road. So if there's any hint or threat of a fire, we call the guys in and they put it out. We have water tanks and tractors. The topography of the farm allows mechanization, which is not true of a lot of cacao farms in Central America. So we're able to, pull a tractor with a big water tank and deal with it. And the fact that we've got 14 guys right down the road that we can call in on a moment's notice and someone always on site, guards against that as much as possible.
Yeah, very good. Thomas asked about, would we sell shares above the 600? We could. We don't want to sell everything. And there's some areas that we can't sell because that's the common areas, if you will. But what we would probably do is, like Dave mentioned, is we'd find another farm that's already producing and then just put our practices into it. And then we would sell those shares to invite, others to join into the family.
Right. The actual answer to that is no. We're never going to sell more than 600 shares because it's going to dilute the existing people. And I don't want to give up 100% of this farm. Right. The current investors will maintain involvement in Finca Chocolat. So we'll never sell 600.
Oh, yeah.
Much less more.
It's above 600. Yeah, no, we won't do that. Okay.
No, there will be no dilution. We cannot legally change the ppm to sell more than 600.
No. Yeah, that's illegal unless all the investors agree to it. So
including the current unit holders. So
correct.
That's never going to happen.
Correct. Ben's asking, why are the parameters so high to be an investor? So the main reason is because it's a security. So this is a security that we have to register an exemption with the SEC, the Security Exchange Commission, and they set the parameters. And one of the reasons why it's so high is because we need to advertise this. And in order to advertise it, we have to go with accredited investors only. Now, if you live in Europe or somewhere, we're set up to take those people as well. But if you're in the US and you are not an accredited investor, then the next farm we do will probably be a 506B, which we can take up to 35 non-accredited investors. And so we would probably invite those people to join us in that one. But that's really the main reason. Yeah, so even if you're in Canada, you have to check with your security laws. Let's have a conversation offline on that. I think, yeah, let's have a conversation because I need to hear a little bit about how you found us and things like that. Because it is heavily regulated and I don't want to be in jail with P. Diddy. So
Nor do I.
so we rather err on the side of caution. So we can go we can take it offline and we can talk about it. But we'll have something for you in the future. If not, we just might have to, say no on this one.
So Steve asked, do you sell locally? Yes, we do sell locally. We sold quite a bit locally to Belizean chocolatiers. And we will continue to support the local market. I will tell you, we actually sold above the export rate to the local market because they needed the cacao at that point in time when pricing was extremely high. So sometimes it behooves us. We do better locally than on the export market.
Yeah, so Steve's asking also, will you stop selling investments when we have the capital needed in advance for our projections?
Yeah, we unless we decide to do another farm, the only reason we would continue even close to the 600 number is if we decide to expand the acreage that we want to work with. But yeah, once we have all the capital investment that we need and we've got a factory up and running and we're processing and to be honest with you, I'd like to add a freeze drying component to any processing that we do because there's a lot of food spoilage in southern Belize that we can turn into freeze dried powders and export. So there's some ideas we haven't talked about here yet that might keep us investing more in the farm beyond simply cacao and vanilla and lemongrass. But yeah, there's definitely a top end of that, and we will stop at that point.
And then I'm gonna add to that Dave, when he purchased the farm with the small group of people, they put in a lot of money and they put in a lot of money to run it and haven't made a dime back out of it. So some of the money we're raising will pay them back as well, right? So that's how we're able to do this by taking so long. We don't have to sell it, right? We don't have to sell these shares. But some of these investors do want to get some capital back out. They'll leave some in, of course, but they do want to get some of the capital back out. What is the current estimated value of the farm? And then I will be in Placencia next week and we'll have to meet. Yep, very much so. Thomas, just let me know. The current estimated value of the farm, I'd like to hear what you say on that, David, and then I'll give my 2 cents on as well.
Sure. So, I mean, there's a couple different ways to answer this, right? We have sold the last direct investments we sold in the farm were valued at 9 million based on the share values. What we're looking to do here with this syndication, with this private placement memorandum, values it at 12 million. You can always play with numbers and make this whatever you want it to be honest with you. There's a backstop in the value of the land itself of probably about 3 or 4 million. The trees are worth, X amount of money. Are we looking at it over 2 years? Are we looking at it over 20 years, right? Are we valuing cacao at $2.15 a share or $3.75 a share? So it's not an easy question to answer. I can make an argument for 20 and I can make an argument for 6.
Yep. That's what I was going to say. Also, what you're investing in is in a Wyoming LLC. And so we can do alternative depreciation. So you'll get a K1 at the end of the year. And anything we've planted, anything we've bought, you will get your proportionate share of the depreciation to help you with some tax benefits with your taxes in the country with the US. Canadian, I'm not 100% sure about, but US investors can depreciate, the things in the farm, the trees included. Okay. All right, well, we have gone 6 minutes over. Happy to stay on if there's any other questions. Also happy to take some stuff offline if you have specific questions to your specific needs and what your goals are. This is a pretty much a long-term hold. We do you can't sell your share for 5 years because we don't want to compete with it. With selling our shares, we think we'll be done in 5 years. And so we are, then you could sell your shares at the value, but it comes to us first to get a first right of refusal. And because it is a regulated investment, we have to make sure everybody follows the right rules. So we have to help you through it. But it is if you need to turn around your funds in a year or so, then this investment's not for you. This is a kind of a long-term hold is what we talked about.
Two things. One, Thomas, if you want to try to see the farm when you're in country, reach out to Dave. He can probably set that up for you, or I can have the guys show you around the farm. And then Frank asked what your total revenue was last year. We were about 145,000 last year.
I missed that one. Good check. Good question. That was that question and answer. Okay, good. All right. Hey, Frank, how are you, sir? All right. So it's good to have everybody on. Final call for any questions. And then we'll let you all go. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for your participation and any questions you have that you might think of after this, just reach out. I'm always on email and happy to answer those questions. Thanks,
you
everyone.
for the time.
And we will have this recorded, so if you want to re-listen to it, you'll get an automatic replay of this. So thanks for your time. Have a great evening, and we'll see you in Belize soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.